There is a moment in every person's life when they realize something important. Most of the anger they experience isn't caused by other people. It's caused by their reactions to other people. But almost no one sees it that way. We think the world is poking us, disrespecting us, stressing us, trying us. We think people are deliberately pushing our buttons. But here is the truth that will begin your transformation. You are the one who built the buttons. And the moment you understand that, something incredible happens. You take back every ounce of power you've been giving away. For most people, anger is automatic. Somebody cuts them off in traffic and instantly their chest tightens, their jaw locks, and their mind flashes into a defensive storm. Someone uses the wrong tone and suddenly they feel attacked. Someone ignores them and they instantly feel disrespected. Someone shows attitude and the fire rises. No pause. No control. Just reaction. These automatic reactions are not signs of strength, they are signs of conditioning. Childhood patterns. Old wounds. Stories we've been repeating to ourselves for years. And until you change those inner patterns, the world will always have the power to control you. But here's the part that most people never learn. Anger isn't the cause, anger is the symptom. A symptom of being emotionally hijacked. A symptom of letting someone else decide how you feel. A symptom of believing every thought in your mind. A symptom of giving away your peace in exchange for momentary ego satisfaction. The moment you learn to separate the event from your emotional response, your life changes. That separation, even a tiny one, is the birth of emotional freedom. Think about it. Two people can face the exact same situation. One explodes. The other stays calm. One takes it personally. The other doesn't even flinch. One lets it ruin their day. The other forgets about it in seconds. What's the difference? Not the situation. Not the world. Not the people around them. The difference is inner control. And the truth is simple. What other people say or do belongs to them. But how you choose to feel belongs to you. If you want to reach the point where nobody, absolutely nobody, can make you angry, it starts with one powerful decision. I refuse to give my emotional power away ever again. Because anger always takes more from you than it gives. It drains your energy. It ruins your focus. It steals your clarity. It crowds your mind. It pushes you into decisions you later regret. And worst of all, it makes you predictable. Nothing gives another person more control over you than your anger. If someone can trigger you, they can steer you. If they can provoke you, they can influence you. If they can get under your skin, they can live in your head. This is why the strongest people in the world are not the loudest, not the toughest, not the ones who clap back the fastest. The strongest people are the ones who cannot be moved, who do not react automatically, who stay centered even in chaos. Those who can look provocation straight in the eyes and say, "You don't control me." But becoming that person doesn't happen by accident. It happens by training your mind, the same way you would train a muscle. And the first training begins with awareness. For the next few days, pay attention to this one thing. Notice the exact moment your irritation begins. Not the anger. Not the explosion. The beginning, the tiny spark. The tension in the stomach. The shift in your breathing. The story your mind starts telling you. Every time you notice that spark, you weaken its power. You interrupt the automatic pattern. You create space. And in that space you get to choose. Not react, choose. That is the first step toward becoming someone who never gets angry or bothered by anyone. Reclaiming the space between stimulus and reaction. This chapter is the doorway. The next chapters will show you how to widen that space until your emotional world becomes unshakable. Chapter 2. Why people trigger you, and how to break the cycle forever. If you want to reach a point where no one can make you angry, irritated, or emotionally disturbed, you must first understand why people get under your skin in the first place. Because the truth is, the people who bother you are not powerful, your unexamined reactions are. The reactions you never questioned. The meanings you never challenged. The emotional patterns you didn't choose, but still live with. Most of your emotional triggers were not created by the people around you today. They were created years ago, by experiences, memories, expectations, and unresolved emotions that you've been carrying without realizing it. When someone annoys you now, they're not hurting you, they're activating something you still haven't healed. They are poking a wound that was already there. This is why two people can hear the same comment, face the same disrespect, or go through the same situation, and one of them shrugs it off while the other explodes. The difference is never the moment. The difference is the meaning attached to the moment. You don't react to events. You react to the story your mind creates about the event. Someone ignores your message, your mind says, "They don't respect me." Someone raises their voice, your mind says, "They're trying to dominate me." Someone criticizes you, your mind says, "I'm being attacked." The event is neutral. The story is emotional. The story is the trigger. And most of these stories come from old emotional programming, things you learned without consciously choosing them. Maybe you grew up feeling unheard, so now any hint of being dismissed sets you off. Maybe you grew up needing to defend yourself, so now any disagreement feels like a threat. Maybe you always had to prove yourself, so now any criticism feels like a personal attack. When people bother you easily, it doesn't mean they're powerful. It means your triggers are untrained. It means your boundaries are undefined. It means your emotional world has too many open windows. And here is the breakthrough. Once you understand your triggers, people lose the ability to control you through them. Imagine someone insults you. Before emotional mastery, your body reacts instantly, heat in your chest, tightness in your jaw, a flood of thoughts rushing in. But after training, something different happens. You pause. You breathe. You observe. You recognize the trigger. You see the old pattern trying to pull you into anger. And instead of falling into it, you step outside of it. That moment is liberation. Because anger doesn't come from the outside. It comes from danger signals inside you. Signals your brain thinks are real threats. But most modern triggers are not threats. They are discomforts, annoyances, or ego bruises, but your mind reacts to them as if you're in physical danger. Your nervous system treats argument like danger. It treats disrespect like danger. It treats conflict like danger. It treats rejection like danger. So your body prepares for war even though there is no war. And that emotional overreaction is what destroys your peace, not the situation itself. To break this cycle, you must retrain your mind to recognize the difference between danger and discomfort. If you confuse the two, your life will stay chaotic. But once you separate them, the world becomes calm again. Danger requires reaction. Discomfort requires awareness. Only ego interprets discomfort as danger. And ego is the reason you get triggered by things that don't actually harm you. The path to emotional freedom begins when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What inside me is reacting to this?" Because if your peace can be broken by someone's tone, someone's mood, someone's impatience, or someone's opinion, then your peace isn't peace, it's dependency. You cannot claim control of your life while anyone else can disturb your mind. Not a stranger, not a coworker, not a family member, not a partner. Not anyone. So here is your first training exercise, a simple but powerful shift. Every time you feel that spark of irritation, pause and label it. Literally say in your mind, "That's a trigger, not a threat. This is discomfort, not danger. That's my reaction, not the reality." Naming it puts you back in control. Naming it turns your mind from reactive to reflective. Naming it interrupts the old pattern that once ruled you. And the more you do this, the more emotionally untouchable you become. People will say the same things they used to. They will behave the same way they always have. But you will no longer respond the same. Because power isn't in changing the world. Power is in changing the way the world affects you. When you learn that triggers don't need to control you, you unlock a deeper level of calm. A calm that cannot be faked, borrowed, or broken by anyone. Chapter 3. Detaching from other people's behavior, the art of unbothered living. There is a moment in your emotional evolution when you finally see it clearly. Most of your anger, irritation, stress, and frustration comes from trying to control things you never had control over in the first place. Other people's tone. Other people's opinions. Other people's moods. Other people's choices. Other people's mistakes. Other people's disrespect. You carry emotional weight that doesn't belong to you, and then wonder why your peace feels heavy. The truth is simple but life-changing. People will always behave however they want. You can't change them. but you can detach from the impact their behavior has on you. Detachment does not mean being cold, emotionless, or distant. Detachment means you don't absorb what isn't yours. You don't take everything personally. You don't carry the emotional consequences of someone else's bad day or poor character. You let people be who they are, and you protect your inner world in the process. Learning to detach is one of the greatest emotional superpowers you will ever develop, because the less you take personally, the less anything can control you. Most people walk through life overly connected to the reactions, words, and judgments of others, like their emotional system is plugged into every person around them. One wrong word and their mood crashes. One moment of attitude and their day collapses. One misunderstanding and they spiral. They become emotional hostages, held captive by the behaviors of the world. That is not living, that is surviving. Detachment disconnects the cord. It returns your emotional independence. It gives you the freedom to say, your behavior is yours. My peace is mine. Think about how many times you've been angry because someone didn't behave the way you expected. Someone didn't apologize, so you stayed angry. Someone didn't show respect, so you felt wounded. Someone didn't communicate clearly, so you felt rejected. Someone didn't give you acknowledgement, so you felt undervalued. But here's the truth you need to internalize. Your expectations are not other people's obligations. This is what keeps you trapped in emotional chaos. The idea that the world should align itself with your standards. And when it doesn't, you feel hurt. But that hurt doesn't come from the world. It comes from holding on to unrealistic expectations. Detachment is the process of releasing those expectations and replacing them with inner strength. Instead of expecting people to treat you perfectly, you learn to handle whatever treatment comes your way without losing your center. Instead of expecting people to speak kindly, you learn not to absorb their negativity. Instead of expecting people to understand you, you learn to validate yourself. Instead of expecting people to behave correctly, you learn to respond correctly. Detachment shifts your emotional power inward. And when your power is inward, nobody can take it. But how do you actually detach in real time? It begins with a simple mental shift. Stop asking, why are they doing this to me? And start asking, what does this reveal about them, not me? When someone is rude, it reveals their frustration, not your worth. When someone disrespects you, it reveals their lack of emotional maturity, not your value. When someone lashes out, it reveals their instability, not your failure. When someone lies, it reveals their character, not your gullibility. When someone judges you unfairly, it reveals their insecurity, not your reality. Nothing is personal unless you make it personal. This is the core of detachment. Understanding that other people are expressing their internal world, not commenting on yours. Imagine a person yelling at you, throwing insults, projecting negativity. A reactive person absorbs all of it and fights back. A detached person witnesses it without internalizing it. One acts from ego. The other acts from strength. And with practice, you start to see the world differently. You stop feeling attacked, and instead, you see emotional patterns unfolding. You stop feeling targeted, and instead, you recognize people acting out their own wounds. You stop feeling bothered, and instead, you feel grounded. The next time someone behaves in a way that normally irritates you, try this. Take a slow breath. Observe the behavior like you're watching a movie. Detach from the instinct to defend or react. Tell yourself, this is about them, not me. Feel what happens. Feel how your anger dissolves before it even has a chance to rise. Feel how you reclaim emotional distance. Feel how their power fades instantly. Detachment doesn't numb you, it frees you. It frees you from being tangled in the emotional chaos of others. It frees you from internal storms created by external noise. It frees you from becoming a puppet to someone else's moods. The more you detach, the more peaceful, powerful, and untouchable you become. You stop engaging in useless conflicts. You stop reacting to nonsense. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop absorbing problems that were never yours. Anger disappears because there's nothing left pulling you into it. You rise above the level where irritation exists. And this is where real emotional mastery begins. Not by controlling the world, but by refusing to let the world control you. Chapter 4. Mastering the Pause. How to Stop Reacting and Start Choosing. There is a split-second, tiny, fragile, easy to miss, that sits right between what happens to you and what you do next. That space is the birthplace of emotional mastery. That is the pause. Most people never find it, never use it, never strengthen it. They live their whole lives reacting to life instead of responding to it. They speak before thinking. They explode before understanding. They defend before evaluating. And because of that, their emotions control them more than they control their emotions. But the people who seem calm, unshakable, impossible to provoke, they aren't simply naturally calm. They have mastered the pause. They have turned it into a weapon, a shield, and a source of power. It's quiet, but it's life-changing. And the lack of it is the reason anger rules so many lives today. Think about how most reactions happen. Instantly. The moment someone raises their tone, you feel the heat. The instant someone interrupts you, you feel disrespected. The second someone fails to appreciate you, you feel undervalued. It all happens so fast that you don't even realize you had a choice. But you did. You always do. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you never feel anger. It means you never let anger choose your next move. That is the difference. The pause is where anger loses its grip. The pause is where clarity enters. The pause is where ego fades and wisdom steps forward. The pause is where emotional reactions turn into intentional responses. But you must train it. You must strengthen it. You must learn how to insert it into the moments your instincts want to run wild. The first step to mastering the pause is recognizing the early signs that a reaction is forming. Your body always warns you. Tension in the chest, tightness in the jaw, shallow breathing, a sudden rush of thoughts, pressure building behind your eyes, a spike of heat through your body. These are signals that your nervous system is preparing for battle. You must catch the reaction before it becomes a reaction. That is the key. The second step is giving your mind a disrupting command. Something that interrupts the automatic chain of emotional impulses. It can be as simple as, wait, pause, breathe first, not yet. These tiny commands create just enough space for your rational mind to come back online. When you're triggered, your brain switches into survival mode. Logic shuts down. Reflection disappears. You become driven by instinct, not intention. But a single pause, even 1 second, can reverse that shift. The third step is choosing curiosity instead of reaction. Curiosity neutralizes anger like water extinguishes fire. When you're curious, you're analyzing, not attacking. You're observing, not personalizing. You're thinking, not reacting. Ask yourself, what exactly triggered me? What story is my mind adding to this? Is this really about me or about them? What response protects my peace? What outcome do I want here? These questions pull you out of the emotional storm and into clarity. Most people never pause because their ego wants immediate justice. Ego says, defend yourself now. Ego says, don't let them get away with that. Ego says, show them you're not weak. But ego is a terrible advisor. It wants short-term satisfaction, not long-term peace. Ego is the reason people say things they regret hours later. Ego is the reason small issues escalate into big conflicts. Ego is the reason anger wins. When you master the pause, ego loses its power over you. Instead of reacting from insecurity, you respond from strength. Instead of trying to win the moment, you focus on winning your peace. The fourth step is silence. Silence is one of the most powerful forms of emotional intelligence. Silence is not weakness. Silence is dominance over your inner world. When you choose silence in an emotionally heated moment, you are sending a message. I control myself. You do not control me. Some situations don't deserve words. Some people don't deserve instant answers. Some moments require you to let the heat burn out before you speak. When you speak from the pause instead of the impulse, you speak with authority, clarity, and emotional precision. The fifth step is creating emotional distance before deciding what to do next. Sometimes the best response is immediate. Sometimes the best response is delayed. Sometimes the best response is no response at all. When you master the pause, you can see the difference. You can see when someone is projecting. You can see when someone is not ready for a constructive conversation. You can see when a situation is fueled by emotion, not logic. You can see when engaging will make things worse. Emotional distance is not avoidance. Emotional distance is wisdom. It is stepping back so you can step forward with control. The sixth step is accepting that pausing does not make you weak. In fact, the people who react instantly are the ones lacking strength. It takes nothing to be triggered. It takes everything to stay composed. Anyone can explode. Anyone can lash out. Anyone can lose control. But only the emotionally powerful can remain centered in the presence of chaos. The seventh step is practicing the pause in small moments so you can use it in big ones. Most people only think about emotional control during conflicts. But you should train it every day. When someone cuts you off in traffic. When someone walks slowly in front of you. When your phone doesn't load fast enough. When someone talks too loudly. When your plans change unexpectedly. These small irritations are training. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you strengthen your emotional muscles. You make your calm unbreakable. And here's the final truth of this chapter. The pause gives you the power to choose who you want to be in every moment. No one can force you to be angry. No one can drag you into a reaction. No one can make you lose control unless you willingly give it away. The pause is your way of saying, I choose myself. I choose peace. I choose mastery. As you practice it, your life begins to shift. People's comments won't land the same. Stressful moments won't shake you the same. Disrespect won't sting the same. You become guided by intention, not impulse. You stop being manipulated by circumstances. You start feeling emotionally bulletproof. The world doesn't change, you do. And because you do, everything feels different. Everything becomes easier. And anger loses its place in your life. Chapter 5. The Art of Emotional Detachment. Most people spend their entire lives reacting instantly to whatever happens around them. Comments, attitudes, disrespect, slights, inconveniences, misunderstandings. They move through the world like emotional mirrors. Whatever someone throws at them, they reflect it back. This is why they get angry so fast. This is why they get triggered. This is why small things ruin their entire day. But those who master emotional detachment live differently. They experience the same world, the same provocations, the same unexpected situations. But their inner space stays untouched. They do not become numb or emotionless. They simply refuse to hand control of their inner life to anyone else. Emotional detachment is the skill of staying inwardly free regardless of what is happening outwardly. The truth is, almost every emotional reaction you've had in your life has been conditioned. You were trained to react without thinking. You were trained to take things personally. You were trained to assume that the world is supposed to behave the way you want. Emotional detachment begins with breaking that training. It starts with a simple realization: not everything deserves your energy. In fact, most things don't deserve a reaction at all. The world is full of noise, opinions, moods, pressures, attitudes, and the moment you stop absorbing that noise, your mind becomes calmer than you ever imagined. You begin to see that the person who annoys you, the driver who cuts you off, the family member who's always negative, the coworker who acts superior, they're not attacking you. They're projecting their own internal chaos. You are simply within range. Detachment gives you the ability to see this without internalizing it. You start to look at situations with a new question. Does this matter enough to disturb my peace? If your peace becomes your priority, most things will no longer qualify. A detached person does not internalize someone's bad day. They don't assume someone else's attitude is about them. They don't chase validation. They don't argue with fools. They don't explain themselves unnecessarily. They don't fight to prove a point that won't matter tomorrow. They let childish behavior reveal itself without getting dragged into it. Emotional detachment is not passive. It is active self-mastery. It means you create space between stimulus and response. You insert awareness where you used to insert anger. You observe before you react. You choose instead of being pulled. And this choice changes everything. One of the most powerful tools of emotional detachment is zooming out. When something bothers you, imagine seeing it from a wider time frame. Will this matter in an hour? A week? A month? A year? 90% of the situations that trigger people vanish when seen from a wider angle. The zoom-out method instantly dissolves many emotional storms because it reminds you that most triggers are temporary events, not defining truths. Another tool is radical non-responsiveness. This means you stop responding to everything the moment it happens. You don't fire back. You don't defend yourself instantly. You don't jump into emotional battles. You train your mind to hold still. When something irritates you, pause. When someone insults you, wait. When someone provokes you, breathe. Delaying your response, even by a few seconds, breaks the automatic emotional loop that controls most people. Detachment also requires that you stop taking ownership of problems that aren't yours. You cannot fix every person. You cannot correct every disrespect. You cannot control every situation. And you don't need to. When you detach, you let life flow without forcing it. You start letting people be who they are without feeling obligated to react to their behavior. This removes a massive amount of emotional weight from your shoulders. You also learn to detach from outcomes. Most anger comes from wanting things to go a certain way and reacting when they don't. Detachment means accepting what you cannot control. You give your best, but you don't crumble if the result differs from your expectation. Your peace stops depending on external events. This makes you unshakable. Another key aspect of emotional detachment is refusing to personalize anything. Most people's actions reflect their own internal struggles, insecurities, fears, and frustrations. It has nothing to do with you. When you detach, you begin to see this clearly. You stop asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" and instead see that they are acting from their own mental programming. Their words and actions become data, not personal attacks. Detachment also frees you from emotional manipulation. People who rely on guilt, pressure, anger, or mood swings suddenly lose their power over you. You stop being emotionally available to the tactics they use to control others. You become the type of person who cannot be provoked or pushed around. This changes the dynamic of every relationship you have. The world respects the detached, not because they are cold or distant, but because they are stable, consistent, grounded. They aren't easily swayed, and this makes people treat them with a higher level of respect. You become someone whose presence calms the room. Someone who isn't moved by nonsense. Someone who thinks before reacting. This chapter is your reminder that emotional detachment is not about caring less. It's about caring smarter. It's about choosing what deserves your energy instead of giving it away to everything. It's about building a life where your emotions serve you instead of sabotaging you. And the mastery of emotional detachment is the foundation of becoming someone who is never easily angered, never easily shaken, and never easily controlled by the words or behavior of others. When you control your inner space, no one can invade it. Chapter 6: How to Stop Taking Things Personally. If there's one habit that destroys inner peace more than anything else, it's taking everything personally. The moment someone looks at you the wrong way, you assume they're judging you. The moment someone forgets to reply, you assume you're being ignored. The moment someone is short, irritated, or cold, your mind jumps to, "What did I do wrong?" But here's the truth most people never realize until much later in life. 95% of what people do has nothing to do with you. People act based on their own mood, stress, insecurities, fears, pressure, upbringing, and emotional history, not because of you. When you internalize things that have nothing to do with you, you give other people control not only over your emotions but over your identity. To stop taking things personally, you must first understand this core principle. People see you through the lens of their own mind, not yours. If their lens is cracked with insecurity, everything you do will look threatening to them. If their lens is fogged with stress, you will look like an inconvenience. If their lens is darkened by past trauma, they may interpret neutral behavior as an attack. This is why two different people can react completely differently to the same action. Their response is a reflection of themselves, not you. The second step to stop taking things personally is to dismantle the belief that you must be liked, understood, or appreciated by everyone. This belief is the root of overreaction. The moment someone shows dislike or disapproval, your mind panics because you attached your worth to external perception. Here's the shift that detaches you from that trap. Your self-worth is internal, not social. When you do not rely on people to tell you who you are, their opinions, moods, and reactions lose their power over you. You become grounded instead of reactive. You become centered instead of shaken. You begin to understand that people are allowed to misunderstand you, and it doesn't diminish you. Another powerful step is developing interpretation discipline. This means you stop jumping to negative conclusions. When someone behaves in a way you don't like, you train your mind to pause before assuming the worst. You give space for neutral explanations. You remind yourself that you do not know what someone is carrying mentally or emotionally. Someone's bad day is not your fault. Someone's attitude is not your responsibility. Someone's short response is not a sign of disrespect. Someone's distance is not always rejection. Someone's lack of emotional capacity is not a reflection of your value. Your mind must learn not to make every situation about you. Another key is this: you cannot be offended by something you do not agree with internally. If someone calls you something you know is untrue, you don't feel attacked. You feel amused. But if someone touches a hidden insecurity within you, your reaction becomes intense. This means that taking things personally is often a sign of internal wounds, not external disrespect. The world is simply pressing the bruises. Therefore, part of the solution is strengthening your inner stability. The more confident you become in who you are, the less anything anyone says or does can disturb you. You also must understand the psychology of projection. People project their own fears onto you, their own doubts, their own limitations, their own emotional state. If someone is constantly suspicious, it's because they themselves are untrustworthy. If someone is constantly angry, they are carrying unresolved conflict. If someone belittles you, they are battling inferiority. People project what they cannot face within themselves. Once you understand projection, almost nothing feels personal anymore. A powerful practice for stopping personal interpretation is to observe behavior instead of absorbing it. When someone acts negatively, imagine yourself taking a mental step back. Instead of reacting emotionally, you watch them like you would watch a character in a documentary. You study their patterns, their triggers, their fears. You analyze instead of personalizing. And when you observe, you detach. You stop taking ownership of things that never belong to you. Part of stopping personalization is also mastering emotional boundaries. You must decide what enters your inner world and what doesn't. Just because someone throws negativity your way doesn't mean you have to catch it. Just because someone is irritated doesn't mean you have to match their energy. Just because someone disrespects you doesn't mean you must react emotionally. You can respond calmly. You can remain neutral. You can walk away. These are not signs of weakness. They're signs of emotional power. Another powerful strategy is practicing what monks call mental silence. This means you don't explain yourself unnecessarily. You don't argue to be understood. You don't defend yourself against untrue assumptions. You don't chase closure. You simply let people believe whatever they want to believe. Why? Because trying to control people's perceptions is a losing game that drains your emotional energy. When you stop defending yourself to people who misunderstand you, you stop taking their misunderstanding personally. Finally, the strongest technique is this: choose who gets access to your emotional world. Not everyone deserves entry. Most people should stay outside the gate. Emotional access must be earned, not given by default. When you give too many people the power to affect you, you become vulnerable to every shift in their mood or behavior. But when you control that access, you become unshakable. Stopping the habit of taking things personally changes everything. It protects your peace. It strengthens your identity. It frees you from emotional slavery. It allows you to move through the world without being overwhelmed by the opinions, reactions, and behaviors of others. When you stop taking things personally, you finally become untouchable. You stop being controlled by what people think, say, or do. You rise above the noise. And you realize that most of the storms you suffered in your mind were never about you in the first place. They were reflections of other people's battles. And none of those battles ever belonged to you. Chapter 7. Mastering the Art of Emotional Detachment. There is a level of emotional control that feels almost supernatural to people who haven't experienced it. It's not coldness and it's not apathy, it's clarity. It's the ability to be fully present in life, to care deeply about what matters, but to stay detached from what drains you, provokes you, or tries to pull you into emotional chaos. Emotional detachment is not shutting down. It's choosing what deserves your inner energy. It's the quiet confidence of knowing you don't have to respond to everything. Not every comment deserves your attention. Not every insult demands a counterattack. Not every stressful situation must become part of your internal world. The first truth you must understand is that emotional detachment is a skill, not a personality trait. No one is born with it. It's trained, refined, practiced, and earned. It grows out of awareness. Awareness of your triggers, awareness of your emotional patterns, awareness of how much unnecessary pressure you place on yourself by reacting automatically. Every time you overreact, you teach your nervous system that external events are in control. Every time you stay calm, you teach your mind that it is the master. People misunderstand detachment because they assume it means caring less. But true detachment is about caring correctly. It is caring where it matters and refusing to waste your emotional resources on places where there is no return. Think of it like financial investment. If you keep pouring money into a business that continues to fail, eventually you go broke. The same is true emotionally. If you keep giving your energy to people who drain you, conflicts that go nowhere, or problems that aren't yours, you become emotionally bankrupt. Detachment is emotional budgeting. It's saying, my energy is valuable and I'm not spending it recklessly. One of the most powerful ways to practice emotional detachment is by learning to pause. Most emotional reactions happen because you respond faster than you think. Someone irritates you and your emotions fire instantly. Someone disrespects you, and your ego jumps in before your mind has time to filter the moment. But detachment introduces a sacred gap, a space between stimulus and response. In that gap you regain power. You see the situation more clearly. You choose instead of react. You observe instead of absorb. And it only takes 1 second of awareness to change the entire outcome. The pause becomes easier when you stop making everything a personal narrative. Emotional attachment thrives in the stories you tell yourself. You interpret neutral behavior as insult, or you assume a person's bad mood is your fault. You create fictional meanings that trigger real emotions. Detachment requires that you question the story before you believe it. When someone reacts harshly, instead of thinking, they're attacking me, you step back and ask, is this really about me? Most times it isn't. You are simply standing in front of someone who doesn't know how to manage their emotions. Another deep layer of detachment is learning to observe your feelings without merging with them. Instead of saying, I am angry, you say, I feel anger rising. That small shift separates your identity from your emotion. It reminds you that feelings are temporary visitors, not permanent residents. Detachment grows when you stop defining yourself by your emotional weather. A storm passing through the sky does not change the sky. Your emotions passing through your mind do not change who you are. They only feel powerful when you give them your entire sense of self. Detachment is also built through the practice of letting go of outcomes you cannot control. So much anger and irritation comes from trying to force things to go your way, forcing people to act how you want, forcing situations to unfold according to your timeline, forcing conversations to go perfectly. But the truth is brutally simple. You can influence, but you cannot control. You can give effort, but you cannot guarantee outcomes. The moment you accept this, you stop fighting reality. You stop resisting. You stop pushing against what is already happening. And in that acceptance, stress dissolves. Detachment is not passivity, it's releasing the illusion of control. Another essential part of emotional detachment is recognizing emotional traps. The places where your reactions are almost automatic. Certain people pull you into arguments. Certain comments sting you. Certain patterns trigger old wounds. Detachment means you train yourself to see these triggers coming before they catch you. You notice the tension rising, the body stiffening, the thoughts speeding up. And instead of falling into the trap, you breathe, pause, and choose a different path. Emotional freedom is not found in avoiding triggers. It is found in mastering your response to them. What makes detachment truly powerful is that it gives you the ability to walk through the world with a steady center. You stop being influenced by the mood swings of the people around you. You stop being manipulated by emotional pressure. You stop being thrown off balance by chaos. You become like a still lake, untouched by the noise on the shore. People can splash, storm, shout, or stir up drama, but your inner water remains calm. There is a deep sense of liberation that comes with this mindset. You begin to realize you don't need to argue. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to force people to see your side. You don't need to respond to every provocation. Silence becomes power. Walking away becomes strength. Emotional neutrality becomes your shield. But detachment also requires that you stop holding on to emotional debts. Many people are weighed down not by what is happening now, but by what happened years ago. Past betrayal, past disrespect, past embarrassment, past failures. You keep them alive by replaying them. But emotional detachment is impossible if you are still tied to memories that drain you. Letting go is not pretending it didn't happen. It's refusing to let it define your present. Finally, detachment comes from building a life so full of meaning, purpose, and internal validation that small irritations simply don't matter anymore. When you are focused on your growth, your goals, your peace, your power, chaos becomes background noise. You no longer have time to react to everything. You no longer feel the need to confront every disrespect. You rise above because your focus is elevated. What once bothered you now feels small, irrelevant, unworthy of emotional contribution. You detach not because you stopped caring, but because you have something better to care about. Emotional detachment is the path to unshakable calm. It is the foundation of true inner strength. And once you master it, anger becomes rare, irritation becomes mild, and other people lose their ability to pull you into emotional conflict. You become centered, grounded, and powerful, untouched by noise, unmoved by chaos, and unfazed by the behavior of others. When you detach correctly, almost nothing can disturb your peace ever again. Chapter 8. The Power of Staying Calm Under Pressure. There's a certain kind of strength that doesn't come from physical ability or intelligence. It comes from the ability to remain calm when everything around you is trying to pull you into panic, anger, or emotional chaos. Staying calm under pressure is not just a personality trait, it's a superpower. It's one of the greatest advantages a person can ever possess. Because the truth is, in high-pressure moments, most people lose themselves. They lose clarity. They lose reason. They lose control. But if you can stay calm when others are drowning in their reactions, you become the most powerful person in the room. Calmness is influence. Calmness is strategy. Calmness is emotional mastery. And calmness becomes your shield in a world that constantly tries to provoke you. The first thing to understand is that pressure itself is not the problem. Your interpretation of pressure is. Two people can experience the same situation. One panics, the other remains centered. The situation didn't choose who to break. The mind did. Pressure intensifies whatever is already inside you. If you are scattered internally, pressure exposes that. If you are grounded internally, pressure highlights your strength. Calmness begins with awareness. The awareness that your emotional reaction is not the situation unfolding, but the story you attach to it. Stress doesn't come from the event itself. It comes from how much meaning your mind assigns to it. It comes from assumptions, fears, what-ifs, and imagined consequences. When something stressful happens, your mind tries to predict the worst outcomes. It reacts to fear, not facts. This is why calm people always appear wiser. They don't respond to imagined disasters, only to what is real. To cultivate calmness, you need to develop the skill of separating facts from fear. When pressure strikes, stop asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" Instead ask yourself, "What is actually happening right now?" This one shift takes you from panic to clarity. Calmness is also built through breath. Your breathing is the remote control to your emotional state. When your breath becomes shallow and fast, your nervous system interprets it as danger. Your body enters survival mode. But when you intentionally slow your breath, you deactivate the alarm system in your brain. You send a message to your body, "We are safe. We are in control." Calm people are not magically calm, they know how to breathe in a way that stabilizes their mind. Another major part of staying calm under pressure is mastering the art of mental distance. When something intense happens, you must train yourself to step back in your mind, even if just for a moment. Instead of being inside the storm, imagine yourself watching the storm from a distance. You are no longer consumed by the event, you are observing it. The more distance you create, the clearer you think. When you distance yourself mentally, problems shrink down to their real size instead of the exaggerated size your emotions give them. Pressure becomes easier to handle when you understand that not everything requires an immediate reaction. Most people react because the discomfort of uncertainty feels unbearable. They rush to respond because silence feels threatening. But calm people have learned the rare ability to sit inside discomfort without losing themselves. They can wait. They can observe. They can gather information. They can let the moment breathe. They don't react out of panic, they respond from power. Another secret of staying calm is refusing to take on pressure that isn't yours. You'd be surprised how much stress you carry that belongs to other people. Their expectations, their urgency, their emotions, their mistakes, their drama. You absorb their energy without even noticing. But calmness requires emotional boundaries. It requires the awareness that you don't have to internalize everything you experience. Someone else's chaos does not have to become your chaos. Someone else's mistake does not automatically become your burden. You can care without caring. You can help without absorbing. You can listen without losing emotional balance. Once you establish boundaries, you'll notice that pressure loses half of its weight because you stop holding what doesn't belong to you. Another layer of calmness is preparation. Calm people aren't calm because nothing happens to them. They're calm because they trust themselves to handle whatever happens. Confidence reduces panic. When you believe in your ability to think, adjust, and find solutions, pressure stops feeling like a threat. It becomes a challenge, an opportunity to demonstrate your strength. But the most powerful part of staying calm under pressure is presence. Stress pulls your mind into the future, into imagined outcomes, fears, and worst-case scenarios. Calmness pulls you back into the present moment. Right now, this second, you are safe. Right now, you are capable. Right now, the situation is manageable. Most problems shrink dramatically when you stop projecting them into the future. Presence breaks the illusion that pressure is bigger than you. Calmness also requires resisting the urge to match the emotional energy of the environment. When people around you are panicking, shouting, or losing control, it's tempting to mirror their energy. But matching chaos only creates more chaos. Calmness interrupts the cycle. It stabilizes the environment. It changes the tone of the entire moment. There is immense power in being the one who stays grounded when everyone else is shaking. People instinctively look to the calmest person for direction, because calmness signals leadership. To stay calm under pressure, you must also redefine how you see stress. Most people see stress as a sign that something is wrong. Calm people see stress as feedback, as data, as information. Stress is simply your body saying, pay attention. This matters. It's not the enemy. It's guidance. The moment you stop fighting stress, you stop panicking about pressure. You learn to use it instead of being used by it. Lastly, calmness is strengthened through repetition. Every time you stay calm in a situation that once triggered you, your brain rewires itself. You create new emotional patterns. You teach your nervous system a new baseline. Calmness becomes your default, not your effort. And one day you'll find yourself in a moment that would have completely destroyed you years ago, and you'll feel nothing but clarity, focus, and inner strength. That's when you know you've evolved. Staying calm under pressure doesn't just protect your peace, it elevates your entire life. It makes you more effective, more respected, more trusted, and more in control of your destiny. When you remain calm, you think better, move smarter, and act from a place of power rather than panic. And little by little, you become the kind of person who is no longer intimidated by challenges, no longer shaken by conflict, no longer overwhelmed by stress. You become a steady, grounded, powerful force. Someone who rises above chaos instead of drowning in it. Calmness becomes your armor. And pressure? Pressure becomes just another moment you know how to master. Chapter 9. Breaking the Cycle of Reactivity. Reactivity is the silent enemy of emotional control. It's the force that makes you say things you later regret, act on impulse instead of intention, and lose your power in moments where you needed it the most. People spend their whole lives reacting automatically, reacting to someone's tone, someone's attitude, someone's mistake, someone else's chaos. Most people don't live intentionally, they live reactively. They respond to the world like puppets pulled by invisible emotional strings. And the tragedy is that they don't even realize it. Breaking the cycle of reactivity is the difference between living as a slave to your emotions and living as the master of your inner world. Reactivity is what keeps you stuck in old patterns, old wounds, old fears. It's what makes you repeat the same mistakes in conversations, relationships, conflict, and stress. You react not because the moment demands it, but because your mind is repeating a script it learned long ago. And unless you interrupt that script, it will run your life. The first step to breaking reactivity is understanding that reactive behavior is rarely about the present moment. It's usually about accumulated emotion. When someone irritates you and you explode more intensely than the moment deserves, it's not because of that single moment, it's because there were 100 small irritations you never addressed. Your emotional cup was already full. One more drop caused the overflow. Most outbursts are not reactions, they're overflows. Breaking reactivity begins with emptying the cup. You must stop carrying emotional residue from your past into your present. Every day you accumulate frustration, disappointment, stress, and unspoken emotions. If you don't process them, they harden into triggers. And those triggers fire the moment pressure appears. The problem isn't the moment, it's what you brought into the moment. Emotions must be released, not stored. If you don't let them out consciously, they will break out impulsively. Another key to escaping reactivity is learning to see your triggers before they catch you. Most people only notice they were triggered after they've already reacted. But emotional mastery requires anticipation. You must learn to feel the first signs, the tightening in your jaw, the heat rising in your chest, the shift in your breathing, the speeding up of thoughts. These physical signals are warnings. They are the body saying, you're about to lose control. If you become aware of these early signals, you can interrupt the reaction before it starts. When you notice a trigger forming, your next step is to pause. The pause is the most powerful tool in emotional mastery. A 2-second pause can save a relationship, save your dignity, save your peace, save your energy. In those 2 seconds, your mind has a chance to catch up to your emotions. You shift from automatic reaction to intentional response. Most damage in life comes from reacting too quickly. Most peace comes from responding slowly. During the pause, you must remind yourself that not every emotion deserves action. Feeling anger does not mean you must express anger. Feeling irritation does not mean you must lash out. Feeling disrespected does not mean you must retaliate. Emotions are impulses, not orders. You are not obligated to obey them. Once you realize this, emotional freedom becomes possible. Another powerful strategy for breaking reactivity is learning to observe instead of absorb. When someone behaves in a way that triggers you, don't internalize it. Watch it like an observer watching a scene. Instead of thinking, this is happening to me, think, this is something I'm witnessing. When you become the observer, you create mental distance. You reduce emotional impact. You stop making the situation personal. Observation dissolves reactivity because reactivity thrives only when you feel attacked. Breaking reactivity also requires understanding that reacting often gives your power away. When someone tries to provoke you and you react, they win. They control your emotions, your behavior, your energy. Reactivity makes you predictable. Calmness makes you ungovernable. When people realize they can't pull reactions out of you anymore, their ability to manipulate you disappears. Your emotional detachment disrupts their psychological control. And suddenly, you become the one who sets the tone of the interaction. Another essential part of breaking reactivity is resolving emotional insecurity. A lot of reactivity arises because deep down, people are afraid. Afraid of being disrespected, misunderstood, judged, or abandoned. These fears amplify emotions. When someone does something small, you react strongly because it touches a hidden insecurity. The more secure you become within yourself, the less reactive you become. Confidence protects your peace. Insecurity exposes it. To break reactivity fully, you must also let go of the need to win every emotional moment. Many people react because they feel they must defend their pride, protect their ego, or prove a point. But the strongest person is not the one who reacts loudly, it's the one who stays grounded. You don't have to win the moment. You don't have to win the conflict. You don't have to win the argument. You only need to win your inner peace. Every time you choose calm over reaction, you win a bigger victory than any argument could ever give you. A major breakthrough happens when you realize you don't need to respond immediately. People pressure you to react quickly because quick reactions give them power. But taking your time gives you the advantage. When you walk away, think, breathe, reflect, you respond from clarity, not chaos. The moment you stop rushing to react, you shift from emotional survival mode into emotional leadership. You become someone who thinks first and acts later, and that shift changes everything. Lastly, breaking reactivity is a long-term process. It takes repetition, self-awareness, and practice. You will slip sometimes. You will react before you think. You will fall into old patterns. But every time you catch yourself and correct your behavior, your brain rewires. Every time you pause instead of explode, your emotional intelligence strengthens. Every time you choose calmness over chaos, your power grows. Over time, the moments that once triggered you lose their strength. The things that once angered you no longer matter. The people who once controlled your emotions lose access to your inner world. You become someone who moves through life steady, sovereign, and emotionally unshakable. Breaking the cycle of reactivity is the beginning of becoming untouchable. It is how you reclaim control over your mind, your peace, and your life. When you stop reacting, you stop giving others power. You stop feeding conflict. You stop repeating old emotional patterns. You rise above situations that once swallowed you. You finally operate from a place of clarity instead of emotional impulse. And once you reach that level, you don't just stop reacting. You start leading your life with calm authority. Chapter 10. Building Unbreakable Inner Peace. There comes a point in the journey of mastering your emotions where you realize that nothing external has the power to disturb you, unless you give it that power. Inner peace is not a reward. It is a choice, a discipline, a daily practice, and the product of consistent emotional work. It is cultivated, nurtured, and defended. And the more unshakable your inner peace becomes, the less you are affected by anger, frustration, or provocation. It's the difference between living as a leaf blown by the wind and living as the tree that bends but does not break. Unbreakable inner peace begins with acceptance. Not resignation, not passivity, but clear-eyed recognition of reality. Life is unpredictable. People are inconsistent. Situations change. Plans fail. Words are said in anger. Actions are misinterpreted. The world will not bend to your will, and attempting to force it to do so is a fool's endeavor. When you accept this, the energy that used to be spent in resistance is freed. That energy is now available for conscious choice, strategic response, and measured action. Acceptance is the foundation upon which all lasting calm is built. The second component of inner peace is awareness. Awareness of your thoughts, your feelings, your triggers, and your habitual patterns. When you are aware, you create a gap between stimulus and response. That gap is the place of power. In that space, you can observe without reacting. You can witness without personalizing. You can process without being consumed. Awareness allows you to step back and see the larger picture instead of being lost in the immediate storm. People who lack this awareness are reactive. They live on the surface of life, tossed by every wave of emotion. Awareness gives you the depth, the stillness, and the control that defines inner peace. A third key is detachment from outcomes. Much of human suffering comes from attachment to results, to validation, to the way you think things should unfold. When outcomes fail to meet your expectations, you feel frustration, disappointment, and often anger. Detachment does not mean apathy. It means performing your best without insisting on external confirmation or perfect circumstances. You act intentionally, but you do not collapse emotionally when the world does not cooperate. The more you practice detachment, the less volatile your inner state becomes. Peace thrives in this freedom from neediness. Equally important is detachment from other people's opinions. Most emotional storms are triggered by what others say or think about us. We obsess over judgment, criticism, and perceived slights. But if you anchor your self-worth internally rather than externally, these storms lose their force. The truth is that other people's minds are filled with noise, their insecurities, projections, and misunderstandings. Their judgments are about them, not you. When you stop taking them personally, you reclaim your emotional territory. Inner peace grows when you stop outsourcing your sense of value to the fluctuating moods and opinions of others. Building unbreakable inner peace also requires consistent emotional regulation. Peace is not passive, it is active. It demands that you observe your internal reactions and manage them with intention. When you feel irritation rising, you breathe. When you sense anger forming, you pause. When stress threatens to consume you, you step back. Emotional discipline is not about denying emotions. It's about channeling them in a way that supports stability rather than chaos. The more consistently you practice this, the more your nervous system learns calmness as its default mode. A critical element of inner peace is forgiveness, not for others but for yourself. Many people carry grudges, shame, or resentment that destabilizes their mental state. Holding on to these emotions is like carrying stones in a backpack. The weight may not be visible to others, but it shapes how you move, how you breathe, and how you respond. Letting go of past mistakes, both your own and those of others, creates immense freedom. Peace cannot coexist with lingering resentment. The moment you forgive and release, you reclaim space in your mind, your heart, and your life. Gratitude is another cornerstone. People often underestimate the stabilizing power of focusing on what is working, what is abundant, and what is already present. Gratitude shifts attention from scarcity and irritation to presence and appreciation. It strengthens resilience and protects against emotional turbulence. By anchoring yourself in gratitude, your peace becomes resistant to external disruption. You learn to see life as a series of opportunities for growth rather than a series of attacks to endure. Calmness under pressure, detachment from triggers, and control of reaction patterns converge to create unshakable inner peace. But there is a final, often overlooked aspect: presence. Peace is not a distant goal, it is found in this moment. It is found in the clarity of your breath, the stillness of your mind, the rhythm of your heartbeat, and the grounding of your body. The present moment is the only place where calm can exist. Anxiety comes from projecting into the future. Anger comes from clinging to the past. Peace is fully realized when you anchor yourself in now. The ultimate benefit of unbreakable inner peace is that it transforms your life externally as well as internally. When you are calm, others respond differently to you. Conflicts are diffused before they escalate. Decisions are made from clarity instead of panic. Stressful situations are navigated with ease. You become a stabilizing force, someone people look to for reason and calm when chaos surrounds them. Inner peace is magnetic. It draws opportunities, cooperation, and respect toward you because it signals mastery, strength, and confidence. To cultivate this peace daily, commit to practices that reinforce it: mindfulness, reflection, journaling, meditation, controlled breathing, and intentional detachment. Strengthen awareness of triggers and habitual reactions. Monitor the stories you tell yourself about events and people. Release what does not belong to you. Breathe when tension rises. Choose clarity over chaos. Repeat this consistently, and inner peace becomes the default, not the exception. The path to unbreakable inner peace is not linear. You will have moments of reactivity. You will experience irritation, frustration, and occasional anger. This is not failure, it is part of the process. The difference is that each time you return to calm, you strengthen the foundation of your emotional mastery. Over time, the storms of life will come and go, but your inner state will remain unmoved. You will find a sense of sovereignty over your mind, an unwavering center, and a freedom that most people never experience. Inner peace is not about controlling the world, it is about controlling your mind. It is not about avoiding conflict, it is about navigating it with wisdom. It is not about being emotionless, it is about being unshakable. And once you reach this level, anger loses its power, provocation loses its grip, and you finally live a life defined not by the chaos around you, but by the calm within you. Unbreakable inner peace is the pinnacle of emotional mastery, and it is available to anyone willing to train, practice, and commit. It is the ultimate freedom, the freedom to live without being owned by the reactions, moods, and behaviors of others. And the moment you claim it, nothing external can touch you. You become untouchable. You become sovereign. You become the master of your mind, your emotions, and ultimately your life.